Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are standing at the edge of an ancient desert that hums with the quiet menace of endless sand. The air is thick with heat that clings to your skin, and the setting sun paints the dunes in molten gold and copper. The wind stirs the grains into soft whispers that sound suspiciously like voices, but maybe that's just your imagination, or maybe it's the desert having a bit of fun at your expense. Your boots sink slightly with each step, and in the shimmering distance, the horizon wavers like the surface of a mirage. You squint, and there, barely visible, a tiny flicker of movement against the dunes. It's so small, so well camouflaged, you almost convince yourself it's nothing. But no, there it is again, a glint, a twitch of the tail. The tiniest desert lizard you've ever failed to notice until now. You probably won't survive out here, just saying. This place has a long history of swallowing up anything that can't outsmart its predators or the desert itself. But don't worry, you're here to watch, not to play hide and seek with death. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is on your side of the world. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You shuffle a little closer, careful not to kick up too much dust. This tiny creature, scarcely the length of your finger, is the ultimate trickster of the ancient sands. Its scales match the sun-bleached tan of the dune's surface almost perfectly. Every movement seems calculated, slow, then lightning fast, then stillness again, as if daring the world to spot it. There's something almost comical about it, like watching someone tiptoe across a stage they know isn't meant for them. And just when you think you've got a lock on it, the lizard stops, dead still. Your eyes blur slightly from staring too hard in the dry air. Was that really a lizard? Or have you been fooled by heat shimmer and hope? This desert's a magician in its own right, and it seems to enjoy setting the stage for its performers. The lizard isn't just a player here, it's the star of a survival drama that's been running for millions of years. Historians still debate whether these tiny desert lizards evolved their camouflage first or their cunning behaviors. Kind of a prehistoric which came first, the trick or the trickster dilemma. What we do know is that some species like this little one have existed largely unchanged for over 50 million years, which means they've been outsmarting predators since before humans figured out how to make a decent campfire. Imagine surviving that long simply by being cleverer than everything trying to eat you. You crouch your knees, creaking in protest. Don't worry, nobody heard that, and get a better look. The lizard moves again, but this time it's not the movement that catches your attention. It's the shimmer of the sand as it slides around the creature's tiny feet. The lizard seems to skate across the dune's surface, leaving only the faintest impression in the dust. And here's the kicker, those tracks so faint you can barely see them vanish just a few steps behind the lizard, like it's erasing its own footprints as it goes. A breeze picks up warm and dry and carries with it the smell of scorched earth and something else like sun-baked herbs. Odd fact for you, certain desert plants release aromatic oils when stressed by heat, as if trying to perfume their own demise. Cheerful thought. Right, the wind smooths the sand, and just like that, the lizard's trail is gone. You blink. The only proof the lizard was ever there is the memory burning behind your eyelids. You're not the only one watching. High above, a pair of keen eyes scan the dunes. A giant bird of prey, perhaps, or something more ancient and terrifying. Historians argue about what exactly prowled these skies. But let's just say whatever it wasn't after a chat and a cup of tea. The predator's shadow flickers across the sand, stretching long and sharp like a clawed hand. The lizard freezes perfectly, blending into the pebbled texture of the dune. And this is where it gets fun. The predator swoops lower, maybe thinking it's spotted dinner. But as it circles, the lizard stays absolutely still. No panic, no scurrying, just the quiet confidence of a creature that knows it has the upper hand despite being smaller than a sandwich. The predator lingers suspicious, but eventually loses interest. Perhaps it decides it was chasing a trick of the light, or maybe it's embarrassed at being outwitted by something so small. Either way, it peels off into the deepening dusk, leaving the lizard victorious. You exhale a breath you didn't know you were holding. The desert symphony of night sounds begins to rise around you, the soft scrape of insects, the distant thrum of something larger moving far beyond sight, the hiss of sand shifting under the breeze. You're left alone again with the lizard, or at least you think you are. For all you know, it's already slipped away while you were distracted. And here's a little off-topic tidbit to amuse you as we wait for the next act. In modern deserts, some lizards can hold their breath for over an hour while buried in sand. So if you think you're good at hide-and-seek, the desert's residents have you beat by a mile. You stand brushing dust from your knees and glance one last time at the dune where you first saw the lizard. The surface is flawless, unbroken, as if the creature was never there at all. You shuffle forward, the sand slipping beneath your boots, with a sound like paper tearing, and try to spot those delicate tracks again, the ones the tiny lizard left behind as it darted across the dune. The sun's dipping lower now, and the heat's fading, replaced by that strange desert chill that sneaks up the moment the light weakens. You swear you saw the trail a second ago, the faintest line of dimples where tiny feet press the sand. But now gone. Just gone. It's as if the lizard had been walking on air. You crouch low, peering across the dune's curve, your nose almost level with the ground. There, no, wait. Yes, just there, a few scattered impressions. But they stop halfway down the slope. No turning, no detour, no hole. The trail just ends. Like the lizard was plucked from existence. Or maybe, and this is more likely, it's playing you for a fool, the same way it plays the giant predators that roam this place. Historians still debate whether these lizards developed this disappearing act purely by chance, or if generations of smarter individuals outwitted their slower siblings until all that was left were escape artists. Either way, what's clear is this: you're not the first creature to be fooled by their vanishing footprints. Some ancient predators could track scents, sure, but even they often gave up, defeated by the desert's perfect eraser, the wind. Speaking of wind, it picks up against swirling dust in your face like nature's own practical joke. You cough, tasting grit, and squint against the stinging breeze. The desert loves a good prank, doesn't it? Just when you think you figured it out, it shifts the rules. And now, for one of those delightfully odd facts you didn't ask for: some modern desert lizards can quite literally surf down dunes, flattening their bodies to slide like tiny sandboards. Imagine that. If your average tourist tried it, they'd need a helmet, knee pads, and probably a rescue team. The lizard. Just pure style. You scan the horizon. The sun's nearly down, casting long purple shadows across the dunes. Every ridge looks the same, every hollow hides secrets, and still, no lizard. Just as you're about to give up and admit defeat, the silence is broken. A soft rustling to your left, the kind of noise that, if you were smart, would have you backing away slowly. But no, you turn, heart-thudding, curiosity winning as usual. And there it is, a predator, huge, hulking, and hungry, judging by the way it sniffs the air. Its scales glint darkly in the fading light, and each step it takes sinks deep into the sand, leaving craters in its wake. It's close enough now that you can see the ridges of its armored hide, the flick of its barbed tail. This beast, well, let's just say it's not here for a friendly chat. The predator pauses where you saw the lizard last, nostrils flaring. Its massive head swings side to side, jaws slightly open. A low growl rumbles from deep within its chest, the kind of sound that makes your stomach knot up in primal fear. You probably won't survive out here. Oh wait, I said that already. But it's worth repeating. This is not the kind of place you'd choose for a picnic. The giant beast lowers its snout to the sand, huffing. It seems confused. No scent, no tracks, no lizard. Just empty air and endless sand. The creature grumbles, clearly annoyed, and stamps the ground, sending up a puff of dust that coats your tongue in bitterness. Remember when humans evolved to build houses instead of sleeping out here? Good call. And here's the genius of the lizard's trick. It doesn't just rely on footprints vanishing. No, the little reptile knows that predators hunt by scent, by sound, by motion. So what does it do? It moves just enough to catch your eye or the eye of that beast, but never so much that it gives itself away. Then, when it senses it's being watched, it stops, completely, as if its heart stops too. That stillness is what saves it. Some ancient predators, historians suggest, eventually learn to watch for this kind of stillness to be patient enough to outwait the lizards. But most weren't so clever. Most gave up fooled by the desert's magic show and wandered off to find something easier to eat. Like each other, or the occasional unlucky mammal that forgot to look both ways before crossing a dune. The predator snarls frustrated and swings its head in a wide arc. It snorts, sending more sand into the air, then turns stomping away toward the horizon. The ground shudders under its retreating steps, the vibrations tickling your feet through the soles of your boots. It disappears behind a dune, leaving only its footprints deep wide and leading nowhere good. And you're left staring at the patch of sand where the lizard was. Somewhere beneath or beyond your sight, the little creature waits, heart-racing, muscles coiled, ready to vanish again at the first sign of danger. You can't help but admire it. After all, in a world of giants, the best defense isn't teeth or claws. It's knowing when not to be seen at all. You stand there for a moment longer, heart slowing as the predator's heavy footfalls fade into the distance. The desert exhales, if such a thing is possible. The tension slipping from the air, leaving behind only the familiar sounds of the night, the whisper of sand shifting, the soft hum of unseen insects, and that peculiar silence that somehow makes everything louder. You take a breath, the dry air prickling your throat, and glance down at the sand again, half expecting the tiny lizard to materialize like a magician finishing its trick. But no, the sand remains smooth, undisturbed, as if the drama you just witnessed was nothing but a fever dream conjured by heat and fatigue. You shift your weight, feeling the fine grains fill the treads of your boots, and then you sense it. The air changes, cools just slightly, and a shadow falls across your path. A colossal shadow. You tilt your head back, eyes wide, and see the source. A predator. No, the predator. Bigger than the last one, easily twice the size. A true relic of a time when creatures didn't just hunt to survive, they hunted to rule. Its bulk blocks out what little remains of the twilight. The sky behind it bleeds crimson and gold, a fitting backdrop for something that looks carved from nightmares. Its massive feet sink deep into the sand, each step a small earthquake. The ground trembles beneath you, and you do what any sensible person would do, you freeze. Not out of strategy like the lizard, more out of sheer bone-deep fear. And yet in this moment you realize the lizard is still out there, somewhere, watching, waiting. Historians still debate whether these giant predators hunted primarily by sight or smell, or whether they relied more on the vibrations of the ground, the faint tremors of prey moving beneath their feet. If the latter is true, it's no wonder the tiny desert lizard evolved to stand so perfectly still, to move so lightly across the sand. To leave no trail, no scent, no tremor. Just absence. The predator's nostrils flare, drawing in the cooling air, searching for that telltale whiff of prey. Its head swings from side to side, eyes gleaming like polished stones in the dim light. And you try very hard not to breathe. You're no lizard, but right now you'd give anything for its skills. Suddenly the predator halts. Its gaze locks onto something and your heart leaps into your throat. You follow its line of sight, expecting to see the lizard's cover blown at last. But instead, the great beast lowers its head toward a patch of scrubby vegetation, sniffs once, twice, and lets out a low, disappointed growl. Wrong target. The scrub trembles, then collapses as if the very breath of the predator has unmade it. Odd fact break. In some modern deserts, predators like snakes can smell with their tongues, tasting the air for chemical clues left behind by prey. Imagine if this giant had that skill. Our clever lizard's tricks might not be enough. The predator stirs up the sand with a frustrated sweep of its tail, sending a cloud of dust billowing around you. You duck, coughing, wiping grit from your eyes. The beast takes a few lumbering steps forward, circling, trying to catch a scent or glimpse of its quarry. But it's clear the lizard has once again outsmarted its pursuer. There's nothing here but shifting dunes and the echoes of footsteps that lead nowhere. And then, just as quickly as it came, the predator loses interest. Perhaps it senses that any effort tonight would be wasted energy. It turns, its massive form shrinking as it trudges away toward the horizon. You watch it go, a strange mix of relief and awe bubbling inside you. Once it's gone, the desert seems to relax again. The night sounds returning in full force. You glance down, half expecting to see the lizard waving at you in triumph. No such luck. But then, just at the corner of your eye, a flicker of motion. A tiny ripple along the edge of a dune, so subtle you almost miss it. There, the lizard. Safe, still, smarter than everything else out here tonight, including you. The breeze returns cool and steady, wiping away the last traces of the predator's passing. And in that moment, the desert feels infinite again. A place where size doesn't matter, where wit is king. Remember when we humans thought big brains and tools made us masters of the earth? Out here, it's the quiet, the clever, the quick who rule. You take one last look at the empty sand before you then turn, following your own footprints back the way you came. Footprints that you notice with some amusement are already starting to disappear. You don't get far before you hear it, a soft, wet thump behind you. You freeze, every nerve jangling like a plucked string, and turn slowly, heart pounding so loud you're sure whatever's back there can hear it too. The sun's gone now, swallowed by the horizon, leaving behind that strange, deep purple glow that makes every shape feel a little more dangerous. And there it is, not the predator this time, but the lizard. Or, more accurately, a part of the lizard. On the sand behind you, something wriggles. Violently. A small, twitching tail thrashing with wild energy as if it's trying to break free of the ground itself. The lizard's trick. You've heard of this autotomy. They call it a fancy word for what's really the ultimate desperate move. When cornered, when no amount of stillness or clever tracks will do, the lizard gives up a piece of itself, breaks its own body apart, leaves behind a writhing, distracting prize for the predator to fixate on. Historians still debate whether this behavior evolved purely as a last resort, or if ancient lizards like this one actively refined the art of the getaway, perfecting just how much tail to leave behind, just how violently it should thrash to buy precious seconds. What we do know is this: the predators fall for it, over and over. Because the sight of that twitching tail triggers something primal. The promise of an easy meal, the illusion of victory. You step closer, morbidly fascinated, watching the severed tail's wild dance. The sand churns around it, tiny grains flung in all directions, catching the dim light like sparks. The tail flips, flops, coils, each movement more frantic than the last. And yet no blood, no gore, just the clean, almost surgical break that these lizards have mastered. PG-13 survival at its finest. Odd fact break for you: in some modern species, the detached tail can keep moving for up to 30 minutes. 30. Imagine losing your keys and having them run around the house for half an hour. That's dedication. And where's the lizard? You scan the sand, the rocks, the dark hollows between dunes. Gone. The little escape artist has used those precious moments to vanish, leaving its discarded tail to play the decoy. And it works. A predator you hadn't even noticed, sleek, low to the ground, jaws lined with sharp teeth, lunges from the shadows. It grabs the tail in its mouth, shaking it like a prize. The movement throws up more sand, and for a second you can't see anything at all. When it clears, the predator's still chewing, confused that its meal is unsatisfying. You can't help but grin. Outwitted. Again? The predator huffs, dropping the lifeless tail, and slinks off into the dark, embarrassed perhaps. Or maybe just hungry and annoyed. You'd feel bad for it if you weren't so impressed by the lizard's nerve. The night deepens and the temperature drops fast. You pull your jacket tighter, the warmth of the day, a distant memory. The stars begin to prick the sky, cold and sharp as flint. Somewhere out there, the lizard finds a new hiding spot, safe for now, ready to regrow what it lost. Because here's the thing they do. Regrow the tail, I mean. It takes time, sure. It's never quite the same as the original, but they heal. And then they're ready to trick another giant another night. Remember when we humans thought scars were signs of failure? Out here, they're just proof you lived long enough to get them. The desert is quiet again. The kind of quiet that hums in your ears, filling the space where fear used to be. You stand, brush the sand from your knees, and start walking. Every step feels like a small triumph now. After all, you're witnessing a masterclass in survival. And the lizard? Well, somewhere under this vast sky, it's probably having a well-earned rest minus one tail, but plus one life. You walk on your boots, making soft, sighing noises in the sand, until something tugs at your attention again, a subtle shift in the ground beneath your feet. You stop, breath catching in your throat, and glance down. There, almost invisible, is the faintest ripple where the dune's skin has been disturbed. You kneel, brushing the surface gently with your fingers, and feel the warmth lingering in the sand, trapped from the day's brutal sun. And then you realize you're standing over the lizard's hiding place. It's clever, this little reptile. Rather than flee endlessly or waste energy in a wild sprint, it has mastered the art of vanishing in plain sight. With a speed that would put your best beach-digging efforts to shame, it had scraped a shallow hollow, slipped beneath the sand, and let the desert itself become its shield. No hole visible, no mound to betray its resting place, just flat, perfect sand. And here you are, none the wiser until you quite literally stumbled onto it. Historians still debate whether ancient desert lizards learned this trick in response to specific predators, or if it was just the logical next step in an arms race with the harsh environment. After all, in a place where every shadow can mean death, the best defense is often no defense at all, just disappearance. You sit back on your heels, careful not to disturb the fragile crust of sand. It's humbling, really. You towering over this tiny creature with your fancy boots and your big brain, and still it's the lizard who wins at hide and seek. It's almost funny. Almost. A breeze stirs the grains around you, soft as a sigh, and you remember an odd fact. Certain modern desert lizards can lower their heart rate so much while buried that their bodies barely register on thermal scans. Think about that next time you're trying to hide from someone. This little lizard could teach you a thing or two. You stay like that for a moment longer, listening. The desert hums quietly, as if pleased with this latest trick. The stars above are brighter now, the moon rising in the east, casting a silver glow across the dunes. And somewhere beneath you, the lizard lies still, waiting out the night. A predator might pass close enough to hear its own breathing, but unless it digs at random, it'll never find the prize it seeks. A faint noise breaks the silence, a soft scraping sound from a nearby dune. Your pulse jumps as you glance toward it, expecting another predator. But no. Just the sand settling as the night air cools it, the desert's natural shifting. Still, you can't help but feel watched. After all, if the lizard is smart enough to fool predators, who's to say it isn't watching you right now? Maybe amused. Maybe wondering how this lumbering visitor survives it all. Remember when humans invented tents and fire? Good thinking. Out here, you'd need them both. Because as you stand brushing sand from your hands, the desert seems to stretch wider, darker, more endless than before. You take one last look at the hollow that isn't really a hollow, at the perfect patch of sand that hides the desert's smallest trickster. And you smile because you know that tonight, once again, wit has beaten brute force. You wander onward, the sand cold. Now, beneath your boots, each step sinking just enough to remind you how easy it would be to vanish out here. The desert's surface glows pale under the rising moon, and as your eyes adjust, you catch sight of something strange ahead. The lizard again, or at least you're pretty sure it's the lizard. This time it isn't buried, it isn't still. It's crouched low, its tiny body flattened against the ground, the faint shimmer of its scales almost blending with the dust. But what truly catches your eye are the markings on its back. Two bold dark spots, perfectly circular, perfectly placed. They gleam in the moonlight like enormous eyes unblinking staring straight at you. Or rather, at whatever might want to make a meal of this little reptile. The false eye illusion. You've heard of this seen pictures maybe, but to witness it here in the wild under the stars is something else entirely. It's eerie and clever. Very, very clever. Historians still debate whether these markings evolved purely as predator deterrents or if they also played a role in lizard-lizard communication, maybe a way to warn others of danger or perhaps even to attract a mate. But tonight, their purpose is clear survival. From where you stand, those eyes look big enough to belong to a much larger beast one no predator would dare challenge. You take a cautious step closer. Heart-pounding, fascinated. The lizard doesn't move. It holds its pose head low, tail still trusting its false eyes to do their job. And you know, they work because somewhere nearby, you hear the soft pad of feet, the low growl of frustration, the sound of a predator second-guessing itself. The beast circles unseen just beyond the dune's edge, sniffing the air uncertain. Maybe it catches a whiff of the lizard, maybe not. What it sees, or thinks it sees, is something watching it back. Something too big to bother. An odd fact for your collection in some modern species, these eye spots are only visible when the lizard feels threatened. At rest, they stay hidden beneath folds of skin or lie camouflaged among duller patterns. It's like having your own pop-up security system built right in. The predator lingers clearly annoyed. You can almost hear its thought process if it had one debating whether to risk it. But in the end, size matters out here, and the illusion of size is often enough. With a final snort, the predator slinks off into the night, leaving the lizard unscathed. You exhale, unaware you'd been holding your breath. The lizard lifts its head at last, the false eyes losing their power as it begins to move. The spell is broken, but the lesson remains out here. The smartest survive, and sometimes all it takes is a good bluff. Remember when humans learned to paint eyes on the prows of ships to ward off evil? Same idea. We're not as original as we think. The desert feels quieter now, the tension drained away with the predator's retreat. The moon climbs higher, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the sand. You watch as the lizard scurries toward the shelter of a rocky outcrop, its false eyes hidden once more, leaving behind nothing but tiny tracks that the wind will soon erase. You follow at a respectful distance, boots crunching softly in the sand as the night deepens around you. The moonlight spills across the dunes, silvering the world, and turning every ripple of sand into a sea of tiny waves. Up ahead, the lizard pauses at the edge of something rare in these parts, a desert spring. A shallow pool no wider than your outstretched arms, ringed with cracked mud and scraggly plants that look as surprised to be alive as you feel. The lizard approaches cautiously, its tiny claws leaving faint scratches in the hard-packed earth. And then you see the predator. Again. Not the giant of before, but another hunter, leaner, sleeker, with eyes that gleam greedily in the moonlight. It lurks near the water's edge, muscles coiled, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. You hold your breath, certain this is the end for the little trickster. But the lizard? Oh, the lizard has other plans. Historians still debate whether these desert lizards learn to exploit moonlight and ripples by accident, or if it was a skill passed down generation by generation. What's clear is that tonight you're watching a master at work. The lizard edges closer to the water, not to drink but to position itself where the moon's reflection glimmers on the surface. It moves just enough to send tiny ripples outward, distorting its shape in the water's mirror. From where the predator crouches, the lizard's form melts into the shimmering patterns. No clear target, no sure shot. The predator shifts uncertain. It leans forward, sniffing the air, its gaze flicking between the water and the lizard's distorted image. The ripples blur the lines, turn the small into the large, the near into the far. It's a living mirage, a puzzle the predator can't solve. With a frustrated growl, it lunges not at the lizard, but at its reflection splashing into the shallow pool and sending up a spray of muddy water that soaks its chest and snout. Odd fact, in modern deserts, certain lizards and even insects will position themselves to use moonlight reflections to confuse predators. Nature's own optical illusion perfected long before humans thought of funhouse mirrors. The lizard doesn't wait, it scurries along the edge of the spring using the distraction to slip into a crack between rocks. Safe, for now. The predator shakes itself off annoyed water dripping from its jaws and slinks away into the night, beaten by a creature smaller than its foot. You can't help but grin despite the cold. Once again, brains over brawn. Remember when humans invented camouflage gear? This lizard's been doing it better longer, with nothing but sand water and moonlight. The desert settles again, the pool's surface smoothing to glass, the ripples fading into stillness. You watch the spot where the lizard vanished, feeling the night press in around you, the silence as deep as the sky above. The night deepens and the desert grows colder still, the kind of cold that seeps through your boots and curls around your bones. You draw your jacket tighter, breath fogging faintly in the silver air, and continue along the edge of the spring, scanning for any sign of your tiny desert trickster. The world feels hushed, as if holding its breath along with you. And then, out of the corner of your eye, you spot it. There, on a flat patch of sand illuminated by the moon, the lizard emerges once more. But it doesn't run, doesn't freeze, doesn't even try to hide. No, this time it performs. It launches into what can only be described as a frantic, jerky, utterly baffling dance. Its body twists left then right. It throws itself down, thrashes its tail, flings sand with its tiny feet. To the untrained eye, it looks like the poor thing's in its death throes. But you've been paying attention. You know better. Historians still debate whether this so-called death dance evolved to mimic the spasms of a poisoned or diseased animal, or if it's simply a chaotic display meant to overwhelm a predator's senses. Either way, the effect is the same: confusion. A predator watching this erratic spectacle might hesitate, thinking twice about attacking what appears to be already dying, or worse, toxic. And sure enough, from the shadows, a predator approaches. Smaller than the giants you saw earlier, but no less dangerous. Its eyes gleam as it creeps closer, drawn in by the promise of an easy meal. But as it watches the lizard's wild thrashing, its confidence falters. The predator slows, head tilting, clearly puzzled. This isn't what it expected, not at all. You crouch low, mesmerized by the display. The lizard kicks up little puffs of sand, its movements so exaggerated they seem almost comical. At one point, it flips onto its back legs, kicking at the air like a wind-up toy gone haywire. And yet, every twitch, every convulsion is part of the plan. The predator hesitates, uncertain whether to strike or retreat. You almost feel sorry for it. Almost. Odd fact, some modern desert lizards and insects perform similar displays, flailing in a way that mimics creatures infected with parasites or poisoned by bad food. Predators, it turns out, don't like gambling on a bad meal. The predator inches forward, nostrils flaring, testing the air. But the lizard's act is too convincing. With a low huff of frustration, the predator backs away, deciding this odd, twitching morsel isn't worth the risk. It slinks off, vanishing into the night, leaving the lizard victorious once again. The dance stops as abruptly as it began. The lizard rolls back onto its feet, still silent, the picture of innocence. You can almost hear it thinking, gotcha. Remember when humans invented stage plays to trick, teach, or terrify? This lizard's been doing that for millennia. No script, no rehearsal, just pure instinct and survival smarts. The desert hums softly around you, the wind carrying away the last grains of disturbed sand. You rise, brushing the dust from your knees, and watch as the lizard scurries off once more, leaving behind nothing but faint tracks soon to be erased by the night's breeze. The desert seems quieter now, as if even the wind is pausing to admire the lizard's latest performance. You move carefully, following at a distance, watching as the tiny reptile approaches a patch of sand pocked with small holes. Burrows you think at first glance maybe it's home, but something about them feels off. They're too shallow, too perfectly placed in a haphazard pattern, like decoys, and that's exactly what they are. The lizard pauses at the edge of one snout, lowered as if inspecting it, then scurries onto another and another. You see now these aren't burrows where it rests or hides. They're traps not for catching prey, but for wasting a predator's time. Shallow enough to collapse at the lightest touch, convincing enough to draw attention. The perfect misdirection. Historians still debate whether these decoy burrows are intentional constructions or clever use of natural features, but standing here under the moon's watchful gaze, you can't help but feel the purpose behind them. Each hollow, each fragile tunnel is part of a strategy honed over countless generations of trickery. You crouch, running your fingers over the edge of one decoy burrow. The sand crumbles instantly beneath your touch, the illusion shattered. You glance up and spot movement beyond the nearest dune, a predator drawn by the hope of easy prey. It stalks forward head low, eyes glinting with hunger. The lizard freezes near one of its false burrows, watching. Waiting, the predator reaches the first decoy snout, plunging into the hole. The burrow collapses, sand spilling in to fill the space. The beast grumbles, annoyed, and moves to the next and the next. Each time, the same result: empty, useless effort. The lizard uses the distraction, slipping further from danger with each failed dig. Odd fact break for you. In modern deserts, some animals like certain spiders and scorpions will create decoy burrows alongside their real ones to throw off predators and rival hunters. The lizard's playing that same game, but with a master's touch. You can't help but grin at the scene: a predator outwitted by a creature small enough to fit in the palm of your hand. The beast, frustrated and defeated, lets out a low growl and turns away, retreating into the night to seek easier prey. And the lizard, it vanishes into the shadows. Another victory earned with nothing but sand smarts and the patience of a creature that knows how to survive. Remember when humans dug false trenches in wars to mislead the enemy? The desert taught that lesson long before we showed up. You rise, dusting the sand from your knees, and feel the night air shift cooler. Now the breeze carrying away the last traces of the predator's passing, leaving only the quiet pride of a trick well played. You walk on boots, whispering through the sand, the desert stretching out before you like an endless sea of silver and shadow. The stars are brighter now, scattered across the sky like shards of ancient glass, and the moon casts long, soft-edged shapes across the dunes. And there ahead of you, the lizard again. It perches at the crest of a low dune, still as stone, its tiny head lifted ever so slightly as if surveying its kingdom. But there's something else at work here, something more than stillness. You squint, trying to see what the lizard sees. The air above the sand ripples, heat rising even in the night's chill. Mirage lines thin and shimmering like invisible curtains that warp the world behind them. And the lizard? Oh, the lizard positions itself so that those ripples blur its outline, bending its shape into the waves of heat. From a distance, it's as if the creature isn't there at all. Just a flicker in the air, a trick of the light, a ripple that might be real or imagined. Historians still debate whether this skill, the ability to position within mirage lines, was learned behavior or simply a lucky accident turned survival strategy over millennia. Either way, what's certain is that tonight the lizard is using it to perfection. A predator slinks along the base of the dune head, low eyes sharp seeking a meal, but the lizard's shape is lost among the desert's own illusions. The predator pauses, sniffs the air, peers up at the dune, and sees nothing. Just heat shimmer. Just the desert playing its usual games. An odd fact to amuse you in modern deserts. Some small creatures will sit motionless at the edge of mirage lines during the day, knowing that the distortion makes them nearly invisible to both predators and prey. Nature's own stealth tech, no batteries required. The predator circles once, twice, frustrated by the absence of what it's sure was there a moment ago. It snorts, shakes its head, and slinks away defeated by tricks older than its kind. And the lizard. It stays still a moment longer, then scurries down the dune. The spell of invisibility broken as it moves but no longer needed. Remember when humans invented cloaking devices for ships and planes? This lizard's been cloaked for millions of years, no gadgetry, no sci-fi magic, just sand heat and knowing where to stand. The night feels even quieter now, the desert vast and calm, the stars cold and clear above. You follow the lizard's faint tracks down the dune, knowing they'll be gone with the next breeze. Another trick, another night survived. You shake your head in quiet admiration, the chill seeping through your jacket, the desert teaching its lessons in whispers and ripples. You pause at the base of the dune, the sand cool and soft beneath your boots, and listen. The desert is far from silent. It hums with life, hidden just beyond your sight. Crickets, nightbirds, the soft skittering of creatures smaller even than your lizard guide. And then you hear it, the faint, familiar buzz of insects, a rising, falling drone that sets your skin prickling. A cloud of them swirling in the moonlight, moving like smoke across the dunes. And at the edge of that buzzing storm is the lizard waiting. You frown puzzled. Surely this is no place for a creature trying to stay hidden. The swarm would draw attention, but the lizard stays where it is, still and alert. And then the predator appears. A lanky shape low to the ground with lean muscle rippling beneath rough hide. It slinks toward the lizard eyes, narrowed tongue flicking out to taste the air. But the lizard doesn't move. Not yet. Historians still debate whether lizards like this deliberately position themselves near swarms of biting insects, or whether it was coincidence turned strategy over the centuries. What's clear is that tonight this lizard knows exactly what it's doing. The predator lunges, but before it can reach its target, it plunges straight into the thick of the insect cloud. The change is instant. The predator snarls, snaps at the air swipes at its own face, trying to fend off the biting, stinging swarm. The cloud thickens, drawn to the disturbance, and the predator's frustration grows. It shakes its head, stamps its feet, flails uselessly at the tiny tormentors. Meanwhile, the lizard darts away, slipping between rocks while the predator is too distracted to notice. Odd fact breaks: some modern desert animals will kick up dust or seek insect swarms when chased, knowing that the chaos will buy them precious moments to escape. A natural form of smoke bomb, if you like. You watch as the predator, humiliated and stung, retreats, at last chased off by foes too small to see clearly. It vanishes into the dark, leaving the swarm to settle once more, their buzzing fading into the night's endless hum. And the lizard gone. Vanished as neatly as if it had never been there. Remember when humans invented decoy flares and smoke grenades? Once again, the desert's smallest tricksters were decades ahead. The night wraps around you, cool and vast, the desert teaching you one trick at a time how to survive not by strength but by wit. The wind changes. You feel it first as a subtle shift, cooler, sharper, carrying with it the scent of distant rain and something more ominous, the heavy metallic tang of a coming storm. The stars blink behind rising clouds, and the moon's silver light dims as darkness gathers over the dunes. You pull your jacket, tighter boots crunching through the sand, as the first gusts stir the surface into swirling ghosts. And out there, somewhere ahead, your tiny lizard is bracing for what's to come. Storms in the desert aren't gentle. They don't whisper or weep. They roar. They claw. They strip the skin from the land and leave the dunes reshape the world unrecognizable. And tonight, you're caught in the middle of one. The lizard moves with purpose now, its small form darting between rocks seeking shelter while the sky above splits with the first growl of thunder. The predators are out too, you see them at the edges of your vision. Hulking forms made jagged by flashes of lightning, searching, hunting, desperate before the storm drives them to ground. Historians still debate whether ancient lizards adapted to storms through learned behavior or instinct hardwired by generations of survival. What you witness tonight feels deliberate. The lizard weaves between dunes and stones, choosing its path with care, using the rising wind to mask its movements, the sand-laden air to blur its scent. A predator bigger than any you've seen tonight spots it and gives chase. But the storm is a partner now, and the lizard knows its dance. The predator lunges, jaws snapping at empty air as the lizard veers at the last moment, vanishing into a narrow crevice between boulders. A sheet of wind-driven sand slams into the predator, blinding it, forcing it to retreat with a snarl of frustration. The storm claims the space between them, erasing tracks, filling hollows, smoothing the world's surface like a painter wiping clean a canvas. Odd fact break in modern deserts. Some small animals use storm winds to relocate, letting the gusts scatter their scent trails and confuse predators, effectively hitching a ride on chaos. You crouch low, shielding your face from the stinging sand, watching as the lizard huddles within its rocky refuge. Safe for now. The storm rages on, sculpting the dunes, filling the night with its voice. Remember when humans built walls to block the wind to keep out the wild? This lizard has no walls, no shelter but what the land provides, and it survives. The storm's fury builds, but the lizard waits patient, and still knowing the world will change by morning and only the clever will greet the dawn. The storm begins to ease its rage spent across the dunes. The winds soften, the sand settles, and the desert exhales in the hush that follows chaos. You emerge from your crouch, dusted, head to toe in fine grit, and look out across a landscape, reborn ridges, flattened hollows filled, tracks erased. The world looks untouched, as if no creature, no storm, no struggle ever marked it. But somewhere in that quiet, the lizard waits and soon its tricks will start again. You listen. At first, all you hear is your own breath, the soft hiss of wind through rock. But then faint and haunting, another sound threads through the night, a series of tiny clicks and chirrs. You frown, tilting your head, trying to place the source. And then it hits you, the lizard. Those sounds are coming from the lizard. It's calling. Or is it? The noise echoes oddly among the stones, bouncing, distorting, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. A predator would struggle to pin it down to find the tiny creature hidden within the maze of sound. Historians still debate whether these nighttime calls are communication territorial warnings or part of the lizard's defensive arsenal. What's clear to you standing here beneath the returning stars is that the effect is brilliant. The echoes confuse, mislead, create the illusion of more than one lizard or of none at all. You imagine a predator creeping closer, ears, pricked jaws, parted only to find empty sand where it swore the sound came from. Odd fact for the night. Certain modern geckos and desert lizards produce clicks and chirps that bounce within their burrows or rock shelters, confusing both predators and prey. The desert has always been a place of echoes of voices without bodies, sounds without sources. You smile hearing the soft chorus play out beneath the moonlight. The lizard's voice blends with the wind, with the settling sand, with the night's gentle hum. It's a song of survival, a melody of misdirection. Remember when humans invented ventriloquism, throwing their voices for applause? This lizard's been doing it for millennia. No stage, no spotlight, just the vast, wild theater of the desert. You take a step back, leaving the lizard to its symphony of echoes, and feel the calm of the night settle around you. The storm is gone, the danger past, but the dance of survival continues, subtle as a whisper, clever as the trickster beneath the sand. The night deepens thick with the kind of stillness that only comes after a storm, when even the predators seem to hesitate, unsure of the new world the wind has left behind. You walk slowly, now careful where you place each step, as if the sand might swallow you too if you're careless. The moon's light returns brighter after the storm's cleansing, casting long, crisp shadows across the reshaped dunes. And there, just at the edge of that light, you see it again, your tiny desert trickster. It's cornered this time, or so it seems. A predator larger than most you've seen tonight has followed its trail, a trail the storm failed to wipe clean. The beast circles, massive head lowered, teeth bared, eyes fixed on the lizard. The little reptile backs toward a rock face, the sand too soft now for burrowing, the dunes too smooth for hiding. For a moment you think this is it, the end. Even the cleverest run out of tricks eventually. But the lizard hasn't, not yet. It stands tall, well as tall as a creature the size of your finger can, and does something that makes you blink in disbelief. It opens its mouth wider than seems possible and lets out a sharp hissing cry. The sound isn't much on its own, but combined with a sudden dramatic flattening of its body and a violent wiggle that makes it seem twice its real size. The effect is startling. The predator falters. Its eyes narrow, its nostrils flare confused by the sudden change. What looked like a snack now looks risky. Historians still debate whether this display evolved to mimic venomous species or simply as a last desperate bluff when all else failed. Either way, it works. The predator growls low, its confidence shaken, and hesitates. That moment is all the lizard needs. With one last burst of speed, it darts between the beast's feet, vanishing into a narrow gap in the rock, a gap too small for its pursuer. Odd fact breaks: some modern lizards can inflate their bodies or spread skin flaps to appear larger when threatened, a natural equivalent to puffing out your chest in a bar fight. Not always effective, but often enough. The predator snarls in frustration, snapping at empty air before turning away, beaten not by strength, but by the illusion of danger. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding, watching the lizard's narrow escape. Remember when humans learned to wear masks in battle to appear fiercer? This lizard's mask is built-in, always ready, always convincing. The desert seems to sigh around you, the night stretching on quiet once more. The lizard has earned its reprieve, and you, well, you've witnessed yet another lesson in the art of survival painted in sand and shadow. The first hint of dawn brushes the horizon soft and pale, painting the edge of the world in delicate pinks and golds. The stars begin to fade one by one as the sky shifts from deep black to velvet blue. The desert scoured clean by the night storm, and struggle seems to hold its breath in that brief pause between darkness and light. You stand still, boots sinking slightly into the cool sand, and take in the sight, a place at once ancient and ever new, where every grain tells a story and every track, however fleeting, speaks of survival. And there, against the soft glow of morning, the lizard appears once more. Small, scarred, but unbowed. It emerges from its rocky refuge, moving slowly now, cautiously, as if tasting the new day's air. Its tail is shorter than when you first saw it, the stump clean, where it sacrificed a piece of itself. The body moves with a slight stiffness where its frantic dances strained tiny muscles. And yet here it is, alive, victorious. Another night bested, another gauntlet of jaws, claws, and storm winds endured. Historians still debate whether lizards like this inspired the ancient myths of trickster spirits, creatures too small to conquer the world by force, but clever enough to outwit it. Watching the lizard now, you can see how the legends might have started. A scrap of life in a world of giants, thriving Not through strength, but through illusion, invention, and sheer nerve. The light grows stronger, the sun's rim peeking over the horizon. The desert begins to warm the cold of night, retreating like a tide. The lizard pauses at the crest of a dune, its tiny form silhouetted against the coming day. For a heartbeat, it looks enormous, a shadow cast long and proud across the sand. And then, it scurries forward, vanishing once more into the endless folds of the dunes. An odd fact to leave you with: some modern desert lizards can slow their metabolism at dawn, resting during the day's brutal heat after a night of activity, a strategy as old as the sands themselves. The tiny trickster you followed all night will soon do the same, hidden in a burrow, its heart steady, its mind perhaps at ease for a few hours, until the next game of survival begins. Remember when humans thought size was power? Out here, the desert writes a different story. The dawn belongs not to the strongest, but to the smartest, the quietest, the most cunning. And as the sun rises fully, painting the world in gold, you feel the desert's lesson settle in your bones. It wins when nothing else will. The desert stretches before you now, glowing under the morning sun. The dunes you crossed, the storms you weathered, the creatures you watched, all softened by the dawn's gentle light. You stand feeling the warmth begin to seep through the sand, and let your gaze blur at the horizon where the sky meets the earth. The lizard's final victory echoes in your mind, not as a shout, but as a quiet promise that even the smallest can endure, even the least noticed can prevail. The world slows, the desert hums, and you feel its timeless rhythm in every breath, every heartbeat. Another night has passed, another dawn has come, and in this ancient place the dance of survival begins anew. Until next time, sleep well, dream deep, and let the desert's wisdom guide your steps.